Three of the wildest superstitions in history. The persecution of the father of astronomy. Imagine a world where the sun, moon, and all the planets meticulously orbited our own planet, and the Earth is accepted as the center of the universe. This was the widely accepted geocentric model rooted in the ancient teachings of Aristotle and Ptolemy, and crucially, endorsed by the powerful Catholic Church for over a millennium. It wasn't just science, it was dogma. Centuries before our story begins, the Polish astronomer Nicolaus Copernicus had proposed a radical alternative, the heliocentric model, placing the Sun, not the Earth, at the center of the solar system. For many, this was a mind-bending concept, a challenge to centuries of accumulated wisdom. Then at the start of the 16th century came an Italian polymath, an astronomer whose genius would shake the very foundations of this perceived cosmic order, Galileo Galilei. In 1609, Galileo vastly improved the newly invented telescope, turning it towards the night sky. What he saw through its lens wasn't just wonder, it was evidence. He observed the phases of Venus, mirroring our own moon, a phenomenon only possible if Venus orbited the Sun. He discovered four moons orbiting Jupiter, proving that not everything revolved around the Earth. These observations, meticulously documented, provided compelling empirical support for the heliocentric model. Galileo, a devout Catholic himself, initially believed his discoveries would be welcomed as new insights into God's creation. However, the Church saw things differently. The geocentric model was deeply intertwined with theological interpretations of Scripture. To challenge it was to challenge the Church's authority itself. In 1616, the Holy Office declared the Copernican theory on the heliocentric model to be false and contrary to Holy Scripture and warned Galileo against defending it. For years, Galileo treaded carefully, but in 1632, he published Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems, a book that, despite being written as a dialogue, clearly championed the Copernican view. The Church saw this as a direct defiance of their earlier warning. The aging and ailing Galileo was summoned to Rome to face the Inquisition. Under threat of torture and excommunication, Galileo, then 69 years old, was forced to recant his findings publicly. He declared that he abjured, cursed, and detested his past errors. Whilst publicly renouncing his works, under his breath, he whispered, "And yet it moves." Galileo spent the rest of his life under house arrest. His works were banned, but the truth once discovered could not be contained. His observations and his scientific method laid the groundwork for modern astronomy, a testament to how empirical evidence eventually triumphs over deeply entrenched, even superstitious beliefs about the cosmos, proving that you can kill a man but not an idea. It would take centuries until 1992 for the Catholic Church to formally acknowledge its error, so always remember, if you make a huge mistake, just take 140,000 business days to respond. Dancing not in the rain. Droughts have always been catastrophic, threatening our survival as a species. Before modern meteorology, the unpredictable nature of rain led many societies to believe they could influence it through ritual and supplication. These ceremonies, often referred to broadly as rain dances, were not merely performances, they were acts of profound belief, born from desperation and a deep connection to the natural world. Across North America, indigenous tribes like the Pueblo developed intricate rain-making rituals. Their Kachina spirits, embodying elements of nature, were invoked through elaborate dances, songs, and prayers, aiming to physically entice the heavens to open. In various African cultures, traditional healers or rain doctors performed rituals with sacrifices and chants, believing these actions would appease deities responsible for rain. In ancient China, the emperors prayed to dragon spirits, and in Australia, Aboriginal communities honored rain spirits. The human response to drought was often one of deeply held ritualistic beliefs. Meet Jeff. Jeff was a tribesman in Kenya in the year 2008. Jeff would secretly Google when it was going to rain and then proceed to only dance on the days he knew there would be rain. Jeff was liked in his tribe because Jeff leveraged the power of AI from today's sponsor. Just kidding, we don't have a sponsor. Please subscribe. A prayer in LSD. In 1938, Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann synthesized lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD, from a fungus that grows on rye. Its psychedelic properties, however, remained unknown until 1943, when Hofmann accidentally ingested a small amount. What followed was a profound, unprecedented journey into altered perception. Initially, LSD was seen as a groundbreaking tool for psychiatry. Researchers believed it could mimic mental illness, helping doctors understand and treat conditions like schizophrenia. But beyond the clinical applications, many individuals, including psychiatrists, artists, and writers, began to report something more: profound spiritual, mystical, or religious experiences. Users spoke of ego dissolution, feelings of oneness with the universe, deep empathy, and insights into the nature of reality. It seemed to unlock doors of perception previously only accessible through meditation, prayer, or other esoteric practices. We know now that these people were just high. This perceived spiritual dimension quickly captured the imagination of the 1960s counterculture. Figures like Harvard psychologist Timothy Leary became outspoken advocates, popularizing the phrase turn on, tune in, drop out. LSD transitioned from a promising therapeutic compound to a symbol of rebellion and a tool for spiritual awakening for many, challenging conventional societal and religious norms. However, the widespread, unregulated recreational use, coupled with a lack of understanding of its potential risks and proper therapeutic settings, led to mounting concerns. Sensationalized media reports, instances of bad trips, and a general moral panic led governments to crack down. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, LSD was classified as a Schedule I substance in many countries, making research nearly impossible and effectively shutting down clinical investigations for decades. The era of uncontrolled spiritual experimentation gave way to prohibition. While the spiritual claims from the 60s might have seemed unscientific or even superstitious to some, the profound subjective experiences reported by many cannot be entirely dismissed. Fast forward to today, and we're seeing a resurgence of interest in psychedelic assisted therapy, with rigorous scientific studies exploring the potential of compounds like psilocybin and MDMA for mental health. Often within carefully controlled settings that acknowledge the compound's capacity for inducing deeply meaningful, even spiritual experiences. As Joe Rogan would say, it's entirely possible. Jamie, pull up that like button.